All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to Andrew School These Girls on why men shouldn't be vulnerable. Jump in, guys.
Have any of you ever been with a person who like switched on a dime? They changed on a dime, and suddenly you found yourself having to defend yourself from like vicious allegations or rumor mongering or things like that, or even had a close friend by a raise of hands who's done that to you? Only two of you have ever had a friend of yours or a person you were with ever change very quickly or rapidly?
You're talking about like a partner, like someone you're dating? Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. I think that over a relationship, you should change.
It's pretty common, I would say, right? So if that's the case for you, men would probably think that that would be the case for them too. So again, why would they be vulnerable?
But I think men...
I
didn't mean to cut you off. I think men do the same thing to women. Men are fixers, so if you complain about something, they'll try to fix it for you, but they also kind of store that complaint in the back of their mind, and they start using anything that you say to like psychoanalyze you, and a lot of times try to convince you like why you're messed up and like why they can like fix you. Men take the same thing that you're saying women do to men do to women, and they like, in my opinion, it's... What? I don't know. Wait, what?
Yeah. I don't know what the hell she's talking about.
When women are vulnerable,
you're talking about women bitching about problems.
No, like literally anything. Like if women are vulnerable about something that's happened to them, like for example, if a woman's parents got divorced, let's say, or something like that, and she says like, oh, like you're married or whatever, and she's like, I'm insecure in the marriage about this, like because my parents got divorced. That guy will take that and he will use that to the end of the earth. It doesn't matter what you say. He'll be like, that's because your parents got divorced and now you're messed up. Like guys do the same thing to women. They take something that you've said and you were vulnerable about, and they like twist it for their own like evil maniacal good in the relationship, or to justify something completely unrelated. They store that away in the back of their head and they use it against you too. Like men also do that.
Why did you say earlier that you think that women are more manipulative and have more nefarious machinations when it comes to these manipulations than men? What's the difference?
I think that women will go after a relationship. They will do more of a smear campaign. They'll do more of like the getting with their friends or mutual friends, mutual partners, and doing like the, oh well, here's, he did this and he did that and he sucks because of this and he sucks because of that. I don't think men really go to their friends after a relationship or after something bad has happened and do that to the woman. They do it, or like do it behind her back. They do it directly to her. So I think that men are more like kind of calculating in the relationship to make vulnerable things a woman has said fit the narrative. Women don't usually use it against him, like to his face. They take it and they do a smear campaign with it after, like,
behind their back, which is worse. So men are talking to them about the actual problem and saying, here's why the problem may exist, which makes sense. And women will go behind the back of the man in order to smear them. Isn't that way worse?
Yes.
Yeah, so then when you're talking about this...
So what are you talking about, lady? I mean, you just went through a rant that make no sense, first of all, and then you contradict yourself. I mean, if you're dating this type of guy, I understand it could happen. Don't get me wrong, it could happen, right? But we might be talking about a minority of men in this case.
I would put this in the category of bitching, right? So it works like this.
There we go.
Men do bitch to each other. They gripe to each other occasionally. But if there's too much griping, we look over at the other guy and we say, hey, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear your bitching anymore. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. Be quiet. Go away. Right? This kind of thing. And then we make fun of them and clown on them. And then what that does is it prevents them in the future from bitching anymore, right? Because they know that there's going to be a bunch of negative feedback from men.
Yeah.
But we can't do that with our women. Right? We can't just be like, why don't you shut the fuck up because I'm tired of hearing you bitching, because that's not socially acceptable, but that's how we do it with other men. Right? That's how we do it with
my ex-fiance literally would do that. He would literally be like,
we get it. See, this is what I said. Because it probably happens to her. You think because it happens to her, that might be the majority of the cases.
And hang on, almost done.
Okay.
So from our perspective, imagine you're dealing with a woman and she's in this category of bitching all the time. Of course, it's going to be categorized, and when you're trying to fix the problem, which is making her bitch, right, you're going to try to analyze what's causing the problem so you can fix it, right? That makes sense.
That does make sense, but I've had it before, like where like I was just saying, my ex-fiance would literally look at me and he would be like, shut the fuck up, I had a long day at work, like I don't care, like I don't want to hear about your problems. But I've also had it where
well, I mean, he sounds awesome. But.
Yeah, you would like him actually, I think. I would rather that though than a guy taking something that I told him, like that I was confiding in him in and being vulnerable with, and take it and use it against me and be like, well, you have trust issues because X, Y, and Z. I don't have a specific example like off the top of my head, but I would rather just be like, shut the fuck up, your bitching is annoying me, than having something like that I told them.
What about the fact that women are always psychoanalyzing themselves to the men that they're with, constantly to them, and telling them why they think they're fucked up? So women are notorious for doing this. The reason that I talk so much about blah, 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 blah is because this awful thing that happened to me 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Great point, Andrew. Yeah, they psychoanalyze everything. And didn't we hear a lot this kind of argument? Trauma. I need to heal from my trauma. They're always talking and thinking about these things that happened in their past. That somehow, guys, it's just the fault of them acting crazy. Somehow, guys. And even if they have these new trauma, they want to keep talking about these trauma and keep healing about these trauma. And everything that they do has to be about traumas. They're psychoanalyzing everything.
Hard, and I was jump scared by, random, like they do that shit all the time. So they're constantly giving descriptive explanations and psychoanalyzing themselves and why they do certain behaviors. And then when a man turns around and says, wait a second, aren't you doing that because by your own descriptive statement, you said you're all fucked up because A, B, and C? And then a woman's like, you shouldn't say that. That's mean. That's messed up. You're using it against me. But it's like, you said that shit, right?
Oh, that's so true.
That's a good point.
That. I really like what you just said.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, they're always psychoanalyzing themselves.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yo, look at what the hell's wrong. She have like a tick or something. She's steaming right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think we tried to like help each other out. I'm like, oh, maybe you did this, and it's like something that happened like 10 years ago because this happened, and then we don't really want to take like full responsibility for what we did.
Yeah, they like narrate their behavior.
Yeah.
Right? They narrate their behavior all the time. Like, don't you guys narrate your behavior? Show of hands if you narrate your own behavior. Like, you've been narrating your behavior most of the night, right? Yeah, you guys just kind of like narrate your behavior. And so we catalog the narration, and then we're like, okay, well, it sounds like she needs A, B, C, and D fixed. And don't use that against me. It's like, well, I mean, I wouldn't even know it except you just decided to catalog your entire life's work of events to me. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was working as a teacher, I had one student that tried to beat me up, and then all the other kids were like, oh, don't get mad at him, like I heard that his mom is in the hospital. I was like, what does his mom being in the hospital have to do with him like threatening me? And the kids are just like, don't take it personally. I was like, oh, what the heck?
You forgot to start with one time at band camp.
Yeah, every time you talk you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Did you have more on that, Andrew, or good to move things on? Okay. All right. AKA the closer. Andrew, on the back of what you said about men being able to use force with other men as means of conflict resolution, what recourse do men have against malignant women, if any?
They don't have
good
any.
Question.
The only thing that they have is counter reputational damage, which makes them look mean and makes women look like victims. So the problem, especially in modernity, is that when women begin slander campaigns and men defend themselves, usually the only way that they can do so is to be vicious back. This is unfortunately the side effect of slander campaigns, is in order to defend yourself, like let's say for instance, a woman is abusive to you and she's hitting you, things like this, and one night you physically grab her and move her, or move her out of your way so you can leave, or something like this. She files a police report, and now you're being slandered as being abusive, this type of thing. Well, oftentimes the only way that you can defend yourself from such slander is to be like, no, this lady was hitting me constantly, she was awful, this type of thing. But it makes you
weak
because you're determined socially by what is called the Schrodinger feminist phenomenon, which is I'm a very empowered, badass woman, or the worst victim you've ever seen, depending on which situation benefits me most. In this case, women will often portray while they're slandering you that they themselves are the victim if you hit back, right? So this would be the same thing in the context of if a woman punches you in the face and you punch her back in the face, she still immediately gets the victim status, even though really she doesn't deserve it. Right?
Can I ask a question to the panel?
1 sec.
Yo, she cannot be. She's in a little competition. I'll be noticing her body language. And guys, pay attention. If we have more videos about this, the blondie is always looking at the one with the red. She's always looking at her. She and the one with the red can notice that she's in competition with the blondie. I was looking and I was watching how the blondie is always looking at the one with the red, always. Because this one right here on the left is, how can I say this? Although she's trying to get all the attention, right? The one on the left, she's looking much better than her because she's not saying anything. And she can tell that. I want you guys to do this. I want you guys to pay attention how the blondie here is paying attention and always looking at this, always looking at the girl on the left, guys.
Also on
this is basically a holdover from chivalry, essentially.
Also, the issue with when it comes to like reputation destruction stuff here, when we keep it center, is
and when she cut herself looking too much, she just looked back to Andrew right away, guys.
Let's assume, I mean, this, what I'm about to say maybe doesn't necessarily apply so much.
Man, it's gonna be a little bit hard, but because Brian's there now, but before Brian was there, I was noticing that. I'm like, man, this is weird. She always looking at that lady. Why is that? Probably she's feeling the competition, maybe.
If you're just like a normie, but if you have like, hey guys.
Good job. Brian, good job, Brian, good job. Hey, Brian is listening to the PJ Masculinity. Let's go. Let's go. Brian is listening to the PJ Masculinity.
But if you have like, hey guys.
Yay! Hey, Brian, shout out to Brian. He's listening to the PJ Masculinity. Hey, there you go. That's what you need to do, man. Don't let it slide. Don't let it slide. All these things that they do is, how do they call it? I forgot the word. It's communication, guys. This is a chat test. It's a chat test. You see how they do? How can you go to a podcast and start talking with the other guests of the podcast in the middle of the podcast? How is that even okay, guys? How is it even okay? But the fact they're doing it in front of probably millions of people, it just tells you. I'm glad that Brian is calling them out.
This is why we need people to show up on time, because we called you on the phone so that you could be listening. You cannot be having sidebar. I've had to shush you multiple times. If somebody else is talking, don't lean over to your neighbor and start talking to them. It's disrespectful and rude to whoever's talking. It distracts them. It's rude and it fucks the audio. So please don't do sidebars. So anyways, back to this. Page out of Andrew's book. Back to this.
He's he's smiling though. He's smiling. He feels good, right? It feels good. It's uncomfortable, but it feels good because you know the right thing. Look at it. And look at Andrew. Andrew's feeling good.
Page out of Andrew's book. Back to this. I already lost my train of thought. Wonderful. That's exactly why we don't want people doing sidebars.
You were talking about reputational damage.
Yeah. So. Let's say you're like a somebody and the girl's a nobody. I'm not saying this from an ego perspective, but if you're a fucking NFL, NBA player, you can't even resort to counter reputation destruction, really, because you have everything to lose and they have nothing to lose. That's the second thing. Maybe they're doing it for attention. You actually making some sort of definitive
Yo, look at the dynamic of the females now. They're straightened up. They got straightened up. Look at them. That's why you do that, guys. That's why you do that.
Gives them the attention, the precise attention that they want. And then furthermore, given the it's interesting how there's talks about imbalances of power. A guy who's like really famous or who has a lot of money or resources dating a woman who has nothing. I actually think in some ways, a woman who has nothing, who is involved with a man with immense amount of power, is actually severely disadvantaged in some ways, because the woman has nothing to lose. Nothing to lose if she opts to slander or destroy his reputation. He has everything to lose. So this idea that there's some power dynamic, I find kind of almost laughable, when actually women in many instances have substantial power in the sort of in the way that they can wield it when it comes to any sort of false accusations or slander. But I guess going back to my point, if you have a platform of any kind and you're a guy, and so, whether it's a relationship or just somebody talking shit about you, you can respond, but you've just put all your audience's attention on something that maybe many of them wouldn't even hear about or wouldn't care about. So it's a two-edged sword. Yeah, you can resort to a sort of rebuttal of
Yeah, I think that alpha move right there that Brian did to just tell them to shut up. He got too excited. That's why he was. Although he said something to Andrew or something like that, like an inside joke, but he felt good. That's why he's like, man, okay, this is how he feels. That's why Myron always does it, guys. That's why Myron always putting these females right on target, guys, because what happens is if you don't do this, guys, your confidence goes down. Because this is the nature of the dynamic. There's certain things that simps will just tolerate, and there's certain things that alpha or guys are not even simps will not tolerate. Okay? And that behavior, I understand, it's not in Brian's nature. However, make it so. It's just signaling that Brian is getting better with some of these dynamics. I understand he can be simpy or whatever, but you guys have to give Brian some time, guys. A lot of these guys, we cannot compare this with Myron sometimes, because Myron used to do pickup. He's been in the community for quite some time. It's just a different dynamic. Brian didn't come from that background. So we have to give time for Brian to just get some of that, structure behind him. But very important, very, very nice. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next one.